You cannot walk daily in the presence of the Holy Spirit if you do not truly know who He is. And this is where so many begin with confusion, because they have been taught to think of Him as a distant force, a vague influence, or simply a feeling that comes and goes. But the Holy Spirit is not an it. He is not an atmosphere. He is not a moment. He is a person, real, present, and deeply involved in your life. He speaks, He leads, He comforts, He convicts, He understands, and more than anything, He desires relationship. When you begin to see Him this way, everything changes. Your walk with God is no longer built on routine or obligation, but on connection. You are no longer trying to reach God somewhere far away. You begin to realize that His presence is already with you, waiting to be acknowledged. Many people are waiting for a dramatic experience before they believe the Holy Spirit is near. But the truth is, He is present in the quiet moments just as much as in the powerful ones. He is there in your thoughts, gently guiding. He is there in your decisions, whispering wisdom. He is there in your struggles, offering strength that you cannot produce on your own. And yet, He will never force Himself upon you. This is what makes relationship with Him so sacred. He responds to invitation. He responds to awareness. He responds when you turn your heart toward Him, even in the simplest way. You don't need perfect words. You don't need a perfect moment. Sometimes it is as simple as saying, "Holy Spirit, I know you are here. Help me to recognize you." And in that quiet acknowledgement, something begins to awaken inside of you. Because you were never created to walk alone. From the very beginning, God's desire has always been to dwell with His people, not at a distance, but closely, personally, intimately. And the Holy Spirit is the fulfillment of that desire. He is the one who makes God's presence real in your everyday life. But relationship requires more than knowledge. It requires attention. You can be surrounded by His presence and still live unaware of it. You can go through your entire day making decisions, facing challenges, and carrying burdens, all while the one who has the answers is right there with you. Not because He is absent, but because He has not been acknowledged. And so the question is not, is the Holy Spirit near? The question is, am I aware of Him? When you begin to live with that awareness, your perspective shifts. You start to pause before reacting. You begin to listen before speaking. You become sensitive to the gentle impressions in your heart, the quiet nudges that guide you in ways logic alone never could. And this is where walking in His presence truly begins. It is not about striving to be spiritual. It is about learning to recognize the one who is already with you. And as you grow in this awareness, you begin to trust Him, not just in the big decisions, but in the small, everyday moments. You learn that He cares about every detail of your life, that nothing is too insignificant for His attention. That He is not distant but deeply invested in you. And oh, what a difference it makes when you stop treating Him like a visitor and start welcoming Him as a constant companion. Because when He becomes real to you, truly real, you will not have to force a spirit-filled life. It will begin to flow naturally. Your thoughts will change. Your desires will shift. Your responses will soften. Not because you are trying harder, but because you are walking closer. And closeness changes everything. So today, do not seek an experience, seek to know Him. And when you truly know Him, you will never again question whether you are walking alone. And once you begin to understand who He is, not as a distant force but as a living present companion, then something very beautiful must follow. You must learn to become aware of Him. Not just in moments set aside for prayer, not only in places we call sacred, but in the quiet unfolding of your everyday life. You see, it is one thing to believe the Holy Spirit is with you. It is another thing entirely to live as though you know He is. So many live their days rushing from one responsibility to another, their minds filled with noise, their hearts pulled in 1,000 directions, and yet all the while, the presence of God remains unacknowledged. Not absent, never absent, but unnoticed. And what is ignored, even if it is divine, will not shape your life. Awareness is the doorway to fellowship. It begins so simply that many overlook it. A gentle turning of the heart, a quiet recognition. A whisper within your own spirit that says, "You are here, and I will not forget you." And in that moment, the ordinary begins to change. Not because your surroundings have shifted, but because your attention has. You start to carry Him with you, not as a concept, but as a conscious reality. In the stillness of the morning, before the world begins to speak, you acknowledge Him. Not with hurried words, but with sincerity. Holy Spirit, walk with me today. And as the day unfolds, you return to that awareness again and again. In the middle of a decision, you pause, not out of fear, but out of recognition. In a moment of tension, instead of reacting, you become aware that you are not alone. This is how awareness grows, moment by moment, choice by choice. It is not something that demands perfection. It simply requires intention. You may forget at times, you may become distracted. But the beauty of his presence is that he does not withdraw because you lost focus. He remains patiently, gently, waiting for your attention to return. And each time you remember, each time you turn back, that awareness deepens. Soon, it is no longer something you must remind yourself to do. It becomes the atmosphere in which you live. And oh, how it changes you. Your thoughts become more measured because you know he hears them. Your words become more careful because you sense his nearness. Your decisions become more guided because you are no longer relying on yourself alone. Even your burdens begin to feel lighter because you are aware that you are not carrying them by yourself. But let me say this with great tenderness. Awareness is not about striving to feel something. It is not about chasing emotion or trying to create a spiritual moment. True awareness is quiet. It is steady. It is deeply rooted in knowing, not feeling. There will be days when you feel nothing unusual at all. And yet he is just as present in that moment as he is in the most powerful experience. If you depend on feelings, your awareness will rise and fall. But if you depend on truth, your awareness will remain. So you gently train your heart to return to him. In the middle of conversation, you acknowledge him. In the middle of work, you include him. In the middle of uncertainty, you lean into him. Not with outward display, but with inward attention. And this is where your relationship begins to deepen in ways that cannot be explained, only experienced. Because awareness invites intimacy, you begin to notice the subtle ways he leads you, the quiet restraint, the gentle prompting, the unexplainable peace. Things you once overlooked now become precious to you because you recognize their source. And the more you notice, the more you respond. And the more you respond, the more natural it becomes. Until one day, you realize that you are no longer visiting his presence. You are living in it. Not perfectly, but consistently. Not dramatically, but genuinely. And this is the secret so many are searching for. Not a greater manifestation, but a greater awareness. For the Holy Spirit is already with you. The question is, will you walk through your day as though he is? And as you begin to live with that quiet awareness, turning your heart toward him throughout the day, there comes a deeper need. Something that anchors and steadies this walk so it does not drift into uncertainty or confusion. Because awareness alone, if it is not grounded, can become shaped by emotion, by circumstance, even by our own desires without us realizing it. This is why you must be rooted in truth. The Holy Spirit does not lead in contradiction to truth. He reveals it, he confirms it, he brings it to life within you. And that truth is found in the Word. Not as mere text, not as something to be read out of obligation, but as the very voice of God made clear and trustworthy. You see, there are many voices in this world. Voices of fear, voices of pressure, voices of opinion, and sometimes even the voice of your own heart can be uncertain. And if you are not grounded, you may begin to mistake these voices for his leading. But the Holy Spirit is never the author of confusion. He brings clarity. He brings alignment. He draws you into what is already established as truth. And so, if you desire to walk with him daily, you must give him something within you to work with. When the Word lives in you, the Holy Spirit brings it to remembrance at the very moment you need it. In a decision, a truth rises within you, not forced, not rehearsed, but alive. In a moment of weakness, strength comes, not from your effort, but from something deeper that has already taken root. This is how he works, gently, faithfully, consistently. But if there is no foundation, if the Word is distant from your daily life, then it becomes difficult to discern. You may feel led one moment and uncertain the next. You may act on impulse and call it guidance. And slowly, without even realizing it, your walk becomes unstable. Not because he has changed, but because the ground beneath you has not been secured. Oh, but when you begin to treasure the Word, everything changes. It is no longer something you have to do. It becomes something you hunger for, not out of discipline alone, but out of desire to know him more clearly. Because every line, every truth reveals his nature. It shows you how he speaks, how he leads, how he responds. And as you read, something begins to happen within you. Your mind is renewed. Your perspective is reshaped. The things that once seemed unclear begin to settle into place. And suddenly the voice you are learning to recognize, the gentle leading, the quiet prompting, begins to align perfectly with what you have come to know in the Word. There is no tension. There is no contradiction. There is peace. And that peace becomes a safeguard. Because now you are not simply following impressions, you are walking in agreement with truth. And this brings a confidence that cannot be shaken by circumstance. There will still be moments when you do not have all the answers. There will still be times when the path ahead is not fully visible. But even then you are not lost. Because what has been established within you continues to guide you, steady you, and remind you that you are not walking blindly. The Holy Spirit and the Word, they are not separate. They move together beautifully, perfectly. One illuminates what the other has spoken. One makes real what the other has declared. And when you hold on to both, your walk becomes firm. Not rigid, but rooted. Not forced, but formed. So you begin to approach the Word differently, not as a task to complete, but as a moment of encounter. You slow down, you listen, you allow it to speak to you, not just inform you. And as you do, you will find that even outside of those quiet moments, the Word continues to live within you. It speaks in your decisions. It whispers in your thoughts. It rises in your spirit when you need direction most. And in those moments, you realize you are not trying to hear Him, you are recognizing Him. Because what He speaks has already been planted within you. And so, if you long to walk daily in His presence, do not neglect this foundation. Let the Word dwell in you richly, deeply, consistently. For when truth lives within you, His voice will never be unfamiliar. And as truth begins to take root within you, and your awareness of His presence becomes more constant, there is something that naturally follows, something that quietly proves whether this walk is real, and not just something felt or understood. It is obedience, not the kind that is forced, not the kind that comes from fear or pressure, but the kind that flows from relationship. Because when you begin to recognize His voice, when you begin to sense His gentle leading, there will always come a moment where you must choose, will you respond or will you turn away? And more often than not, these moments are not dramatic, they are small, almost unnoticeable to anyone else. A gentle nudge to speak kindly when you would rather remain silent. A quiet restraint when you are about to react in frustration. A prompting to step away from something that does not strengthen your spirit. These are the places where walking in the Spirit becomes real. You see, many are waiting for great opportunities to prove their devotion, yet they overlook the daily invitations that are placed right before them. But it is in these small hidden moments that your sensitivity is formed. Every time you respond to His leading, even in the smallest way, something within you becomes more aligned. Your heart softens, your spirit becomes more attentive. What once felt uncertain begins to feel familiar. And slowly, gently, your life begins to take on a different rhythm. But if those small promptings are ignored, if they are dismissed as insignificant or inconvenient, then something else begins to happen. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but gradually. The sensitivity you once had begins to fade. The clarity you once felt becomes less certain. Not because He has stopped speaking, but because you have stopped responding. And this is where many struggle, though they may not realize it. They desire to be led, they long to feel His presence, yet they hesitate when it comes to obedience. And without obedience, the relationship cannot deepen, because true fellowship is not built on hearing alone, it is built on response. Oh, but when you begin to say yes, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it requires letting go of your own preference, that is where transformation begins. You may not see immediate results. You may not feel anything extraordinary in the moment, but something eternal is taking place within you. You are learning to trust Him. You are learning that His way is higher, His wisdom is greater, His leading is always for your good. And over time, obedience becomes less of a struggle and more of a desire. Because you begin to see the fruit of it. Peace begins to guard your heart. Clarity replaces confusion. Strength rises where weakness once remained. And you realize that what He was asking of you was never to take something from you, but to lead you into something better. And so you no longer resist His leading. You welcome it, even in the smallest things, especially in the smallest things. Because you understand now that these are not random moments, they are opportunities. Opportunities to draw closer, to become more aligned, to walk more fully in His presence. And oh, how beautiful it is when your life begins to reflect this quiet obedience. Not perfection, no, but a willingness, a readiness, a heart that says, yes, Lord, even before the full picture is clear. This is where walking in the Spirit becomes steady, not built on emotion, not dependent on circumstances, but anchored in a life that responds to Him daily. So do not wait for the extraordinary. Do not overlook the simple. For it is in the quiet, consistent choices that your walk is shaped. And every small yes you give Him will lead you closer than you have ever been before. And as you begin to respond to Him in those small, quiet moments of obedience, something else becomes increasingly clear. Your sensitivity to His presence is deeply connected to what you allow to remain within your heart and around your life. You cannot walk closely with the Holy Spirit while carelessly surrounding yourself with things that pull your attention away from Him. This is not about rules. It is not about restriction for the sake of control. It is about awareness of influence. Because whether you realize it or not, everything you allow into your mind, your thoughts, your conversations, your environment, it is shaping your sensitivity. It is either drawing you closer to him or dulling your ability to recognize his voice. The heart is tender. It responds to what it is fed. If your days are filled with noise, constant distraction, and things that stir confusion or unrest within you, then even when he speaks, it may be difficult to discern. Not because his voice has changed, but because there are too many others competing for your attention. And oh, how subtle this can be. It is not always the obvious things. Sometimes it is simply the accumulation of small distractions. A mind that never rests, a heart that is never still, a life that leaves no room for quietness. And slowly, gently, without intention, your awareness begins to fade. But when you begin to guard your heart, truly guard it, you are not closing yourself off from life. You are making space for what matters most. You begin to notice what lingers within you after certain conversations. You become aware of what fills your thoughts when everything else is quiet. You pay attention to what influences your emotions, your decisions, your desires. And instead of ignoring these things, you bring them into the light. Because a heart that desires to walk with him cannot remain careless. There is a holy sensitivity that begins to form within you, not fragile, not fearful, but aware. You begin to sense when something does not align. You feel the gentle check within your spirit, the quiet prompting to step away, to turn your attention elsewhere. And this is not limitation, this is protection. Because what you protect, you preserve. When you choose to step away from what distracts or weakens your spiritual awareness, you are not losing something of value, you are gaining clarity. You are making room for peace. You are allowing your heart to remain soft and responsive. And in that space, his presence becomes more evident. His voice becomes clearer. His leading becomes easier to follow. But this requires intention. You must be willing to ask yourself honest questions. What am I allowing to shape my thoughts? What am I listening to? What am I watching? What am I holding on to that may be quietly pulling me away from the awareness I once had? And when you see it, whatever it may be, you must not hesitate to respond. Not with fear, not with guilt, but with a desire to remain close. Because nothing is worth losing that closeness. Nothing compares to the peace that comes from walking in step with him. Nothing can replace the quiet assurance of his presence within you. And once you begin to taste that, truly taste it, you will not want anything that interferes with it. So you begin to make different choices. Not because someone has told you to, but because your heart has been awakened to something greater. You choose what brings life. You choose what strengthens your spirit. You choose what keeps your heart open, tender, and aware. And as you do, something beautiful happens. The distractions lose their hold. The noise begins to fade. And his presence, so gentle, so constant, becomes the atmosphere in which you live. You are no longer pulled in every direction. You are no longer easily unsettled. There is a steadiness within you, a quiet clarity that remains even when everything around you shifts. Because your heart has been guarded. Your environment has been aligned. And your awareness has been preserved. This is not about perfection. There will be moments when you must realign, moments when you must gently return. But even in that there is grace. Even in that he draws you back, not with condemnation but with invitation. Come closer, remain aware, stay with me. And you realize more deeply than ever before that walking in his presence is not just about what you do, it is also about what you allow. So guard your heart with tenderness. Protect your awareness with intention. And do not allow anything to take the place of what you were created to carry. For where your heart remains, there his presence will be known. And when your heart has learned to recognize him, when your awareness has become steady, when truth is living within you, when obedience has become your quiet response, and your life has been gently aligned to protect that sensitivity, there is one final step that draws everything together. It is surrender. Not a momentary decision, not a single prayer spoken once and forgotten, but a daily yielding of your life into his hands. Because no matter how much you understand, no matter how deeply you feel, you cannot walk in the fullness of his presence while holding tightly to your own control. And oh, how natural it is to want control, to want to understand every step before you take it, to want assurance before you trust, to want your plans to unfold the way you have imagined them. But the life that is led by the Holy Spirit is not built on control. It is built on trust. And trust requires surrender. It is the quiet decision that says, not my way, but yours. Even when his way is not fully clear. Even when it asks you to release what feels familiar. Even when it leads you into places you would not have chosen on your own. Because deep within you begin to understand, he sees what you cannot see. He knows what you do not know. and his leading is always rooted in a wisdom far beyond your own. Surrender is not weakness, it is not loss, it is the place where true strength is found. Because when you release your need to control, you make room for his power to work within you, and that power does not come with striving. It flows through yieldedness. There is a rest that comes when you stop trying to manage everything yourself, a peace that settles within you when you are no longer carrying what was never meant for you to carry. And in that place of rest, his presence becomes not only something you are aware of, but something you depend on. This is where your walk becomes deeper than routine, deeper than discipline. It becomes life itself. You begin to consult him in all things, not out of obligation, but out of reliance. You no longer move ahead without that quiet sense of his peace. You no longer cling to your own understanding when he is gently leading you another way. And when challenges come, and they will, you are not shaken in the same way. Because your trust is not in circumstances, it is not in outcomes, it is in him, and he does not change. Surrender teaches you to remain steady when everything else feels uncertain. It teaches you to listen when your own thoughts grow loud. It teaches you to wait when every part of you wants to rush ahead. And oh, how beautiful it is when a life becomes fully yielded. There is no striving to impress, no pressure to perform. Only a quiet, steady dependence that says, I cannot do this without you, and I will not try. And in that place, the Holy Spirit is free to lead you in ways you never could have planned. He begins to shape your desires. He aligns your steps. He opens doors you could not have opened and closes those that would have led you away from his best. And all the while, you are not forcing your way forward. You are being led, gently, faithfully, perfectly. And you realize something that changes everything. The Spirit-filled life is not about doing more. It is about yielding more. It is not about becoming someone through effort. It is about allowing him to form something within you through surrender. So each day you come before him again, not with resistance, not with hesitation, but with openness. Have your way. And in that simple, surrendered posture, your life becomes a place where his presence is not only known but expressed. This is the fullness of walking in the Spirit. This is where everything you have learned begins to live and breathe within you. And it all comes down to this. Will you trust him enough to let go?